Okay. And I want to welcome everyone back to the Learning Clinic on CKLU 96.7 FM. I'm your host, Bob Kirwan, and you're listening to the Learning Clinic Meet the Candidates radio show. This afternoon in the studio we have Gelinas, who is the current member of Upper Provincial Parliament for the Ontario NDP. I'm not even sure, Franz, is there a current status in the Ontario legislature? Has it been disbanded because of the writ?
No, before the writ, Premier Wynne went to the Lieutenant Governor Friday, a week past, and she asked for the Parliament to be dissolved. That happened on Friday afternoon, and that afternoon, I think it was May 5th, Parliament was dissolved, and we were no longer MPP, and she was no longer the Premier. We are all candidates for our party. I'm the candidate for the NDP, the New Democratic Party, for the riding of Nickel Belt.
Okay, that's because I was listening to her on the agenda, I think last week, and she said it was hard for her to get used to saying that she's a candidate now. She's not. She's not the Premier. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is interesting. So anyway, great. Welcome to CKLU, Franz. We were talking before we went on air. I can't remember, like, just before the last election, we were in here doing the same type of show with the candidate from the Sudbury riding. But today we're here. You're running for Nickel Belt again. You're carrying the NDP banner, and what we want to do is just educate us, teach us, tell us what this is all about from a candidate's point of view, and from a governing point of view, and from the provincial point of view, and let us know what's going on.
Oh, sure. Well, first of all, I started out with my date wrong. It was on May 2nd.
Okay.
That was a Friday on May 2nd. Let me backtrack even more. Let's go to Thursday, May 1st.
Right.
Thursday, May 1st, the budget was presented. Our Minister of Finance, the House was in session, the Minister of Finance presented his budget. It is quite a lengthy document, over 370 some pages. And it carries a vote. You have to have a vote on the budget. So he presents a budget, and he presents a budget bill. So all of this was presented on Thursday, May 1st. Andrea Horvath, who's the leader of the NDP, had asked all of us NDP member of the legislature to do our homework, to read the budget, and really, really take it seriously, because we were to have to vote on it. So that was a Thursday. Thursday night was a very short night, because we all had our part. I'm the critic for Health and Francophone Affairs, so I was most interested in the part of the budget that had to do with health. But you cannot just read health, because everything that has to do with poverty also has to do with health. So I read all of this. We got together the next morning, caucus meeting at 8 o'clock. By 10 o'clock, the decision had been made that we were going to vote no to the budget when the budget came, unless, like something drastic of some kind of a misunderstanding of the budget. Mainly in my part, mainly because there were so many promises being made in that budget with no money to back them up. If you look specifically at healthcare, they were making promises of $4 an hour increases to the pay of the PSW, the personal support workers. The personal support workers are the people that delivers home care. Their wages are barely above minimum wage. They don't get paid travel times in between. Do they deserve a raise? Absolutely. They're mainly women working basically minimum wage or less, and they deserve. But there was nothing in the budget that showed me that there was going to be money to pay for that promise. And I don't give false hope
Right.
to people who deserve to be treated with respect. So that was my part. But in education was the same thing, and in every ministry was the same thing. So we said, this is no good. We're not going to support something where they make, in total, there were 70 promises made in the budget. None of them, well, I shouldn't say none of them, for many, many of them, there was no way to see how were they going to find the money to pay for those promises. So I felt very uncomfortable, and so did my colleagues, so we voted it no. You have to realize that in 2012, when the budget came, they made us 3 promises. They promised us that there would be a financial accountability officer in place, so somebody to look at the numbers before they become public, to ensure the public that the money was there, the money was going to be used to good ends. And they promised us that this would be ready by December 2013. Well, we were now into the beginning of May, like 17 months later, it was nowhere to be found. They had promised us a 15% decrease in auto insurance rate. I don't know if you've checked your auto insurance lately, but I've checked mine. I haven't found anybody who's seen it go down 15%. And they had also, they had made us a promise of taking away the wait list for home care to a maximum of 5 days. In our area, there are people who wait 5 and 7 months
Right.
to get the home care they need, and this does not happen either. So they had made 3 reasonable promises that had all been financially accounted for that they did not keep. Now they were making us 70 promises where we could not find where the money was coming for, and we said, no, this is not reasonable. At this point, we're giving people false hope that also, and there's good things in those promises, like, don't get me wrong.
There's a lot of good things in the
Some of those
promises,
promises are really good, are things that I want to see happen, but I'm not going to say this when I don't have the money to back them up to make them happen. So that was at 10 o'clock in the morning. So Andrea did a press conference and said that she was not going to support the budget. In theory, we should have debated it for about 2 weeks and then taken the vote 2 weeks later. Those 2 weeks, in our minds, were going to be used for, there was quite a few important bills on the docket that all parties agreed to. So it would have been a good time to work together to get those through, so that those pieces of legislation would go through. For example, we all agree that force responders should be covered for PTSD, post-traumatic stress
Right.
disorder.
Yeah.
It got unanimous support. Let's push it through. There was another bill, I don't know if you know, but there is now a for-profit lab that has set up in Ontario to collect plasma and blood products. This is something that flies in the face. People have gone to the Red Cross and they've gone to Canadian Blood Services, and we've always donated. And this is kind of at the core as to how our blood services stay safe, is because it's a donation that you make. So there was a bill on the docket to make sure that this for-profit was not going to set up shop in Ontario. We had unanimous support. We thought this was going to go through. Anyway, there was a number of bills
Right.
that we thought we would use that 2 weeks to clean up the docket. Everywhere there was unanimity, again, amongst the 3 parties, we would get this done. While maybe we would learn a few things about the budget, we would learn more about how those promises were being to be paid for.
So things like the cost of living increase for minimum wage
Exactly.
was something that.
Yeah, that was in the budget.
So it's going up to $11, but the cost of living provision is not going through.
No,
Things like the ombudsman for schools.
yeah, and
those all
for
have to
healthcare.
be reintroduced later on.
And we go through first, second, third
They have to
first,
go through
second, third
everything again.
reading, yeah, have public
Yes.
consultation again, third reading.
So it doesn't just pick up where it left off?
No, no,
You
no.
can't skip some of those steps, no?
It's like the magic
Oh.
eraser. You erase everything.
And then you have to go through the expense of starting over?
Yeah, yeah, you got it. The time, effort, energy, expense, everything
Wow.
else is starting over. So we thought, let's use those 2 weeks left to really move some of this legislation forward that we knew was going to go forward because we had already spoken that we were in favor. But none of this happened. Premier Wynne went to the Lieutenant Governor on Friday and said that she wanted to dissolve Parliament. Lieutenant Governor agreed, which means that he could have turned around and asked the PC or us if we wanted to govern, but it makes no sense because none of us have a majority. So we knew that the writ would drop. There is a law in Ontario that said the writ can only drop on a Wednesday and an election can only be held on a Thursday. So from Friday to Wednesday, we were in no man's land as to the Parliament had been dissolved, so I was no longer an MPP, Premier Wynne was no longer a premier, we were all regular regular candidates. And then on Wednesday, the writ drops, which means all of the laws that governs an election came into play. I was allowed to put up my signs, I was allowed to do all of this that you're only allowed to do during an election period. So as of last Wednesday, so we're now the 8th of May, last Wednesday, the writ dropped. All of the regulations that surrounds the elections are now in place. So since election is usually 28 days, like an election period in Ontario is usually 28 days, which means that the election should have been on June 5th. But June 5th is a statutory, not a statutory, it's a religious holidays
Some kind of
in the
religious
Jewish
holiday.
faith.
Okay,
So it got postponed to the 12th,
because it had to be on a Thursday.
because it has to be on a Thursday.
Wow.
Interesting, eh?
So there are some interesting steps here, yeah. And I guess the strategy of everything ending, there were some pretty significant things going on that
There were some pretty
in the government that
Yeah.
basically are stopped now. That
Yeah, I can name one. I don't know if you remember Orange, the air ambulance of Ontario.
Mhm.
It was mismanaged for years and years and years where, like the top leadership, Dr. Mazza and his board of director would go to the Liberal government. The Liberal government kept sending hundreds of millions of dollars to this thing and they pocketed the money. They drove our air ambulance, which was a really good agency, into the ground, and it was disgusting. Our report was to be tabled on Monday,
Oh,
but we dissolved on Friday, which means that 2.5 years of work will never be seen.
oh my goodness. So that report is gone now?
Toast,
So it would have to start all over again?
correct.
Wow, so there isn't just cost implications going forward, there's money that's been spent that
This thing
is
has,
gone now.
we had, I want to quote 87, I don't remember the exact number of witness, but in and around, we had hundreds of hours of testimonies, we had dozens and dozens of witnesses, we have written the report, went through it, corrected it, it was printed, it was to be tabled on the Monday, and now it will never see the light of day. And,
Wow, it
yeah.
is.
yeah,
So I guess there was a possibility that one of the other two parties could have been asked to take over for a while.
yeah, the lieutenant governor always has this discretion to ask one of the two party or ask a coalition
But that would have
to
been
continue to govern.
really thinking outside the box, right? That would be doing something that's not normally done.
Not very often done in democracy, but it has been done recently in Belgium.
Okay.
Belgium, when is functioned pretty well, a democracy very similar to ours, And when the majority decided they couldn't govern, they went to the lieutenant governor to say to dissolve, and the lieutenant governor refused and said, no, you will work it out with somebody else to make it work. So it does happen. It did not happen in this case, and I don't want to pass judgment on our lieutenant governor. He did what he thought was the best for Ontario, and
even the pressure facing the NDP. I mean, you know, I don't have any political affiliation, but when I look at the pressure, knowing that your no vote was going to result in an election, and knowing that there are lots of things on the table that would have been nice to see going through, I guess your biggest discussion in the morning on that, on the 2nd of May was, do we risk just wiping everything off the table, or do we risk supporting this and having people accuse us of making promises that we couldn't keep to? Because I guess you would have been adopting the budget.
We would have been adopting a budget that, you know, like when I looked at my part and said, you know, like some of the promise in there, I kind of checked the box, yeah, we can do this. We or they, yes, this can be done. I don't think so, and this, like, they're really being disrespectful by putting that forward, because I know this is not going to happen. So you go through those 70 promises, this is completely disrespectful. There is no way that they are going to be able to do this. For a lot of it, there was not one penny in the budget to support it.
Right.
It's like, what are we talking about? You know, like the pension plan. Pension plan is something that we have been pushing for a long time. We want people to have respectful wage replacement once they retired. If you've worked all your life, there should be a way for all of us to put money aside for when we retire. The CPP is great, it has worked good, it is just too small.
Yeah, it's not enough.
It's not enough, it's not enough. And so, you know, like, we know the difficulty Mr. Harper has with this concept, so we had been pushing for an Ontario pension plan for a long time. So when we see this in their platform, it's like, wow, they saw the light of day. Like, this is one of our ideas, this is something we've been pushing for the last 6 years. But then when you look in the pages of the budget bill, not the budget document. The budget document is what you read out loud. The budget bill is where the money comes and goes. Zero, not one penny into not even setting up an office, not even doing some recruitment, not even, you know, like fleshing it out with nothing.
Really?
So, okay, and healthcare was the same thing. And education was the same thing, and the big ministries were all the same, and we had not even finished going around the table that I was thinking, oh my God, we're voting no. Oh, and yeah, and we finished going around the table, and everybody did, and we had unanimously, we could not support.
So I guess dissolving Parliament so quickly.
That wasn't us who dissolved Parliament.
No, but
Yeah.
that was a surprise.
That was a surprise, oh, absolutely. That was an absolute surprise. To us, it was really, we had announced that we did not have confidence, but we were not in a position where we could pull the plug. The only time that would have come to is a budget bill can only be debated for so many hours. Once you've debated it for so many hours, then the vote has to come, and at that point,
So the budget has never been defeated,
no.
hasn't been discussed,
It
hasn't been debated.
never been debated, they never came back to us and say, oh, you read this wrong, or no, we'll correct your record, here's how we're gonna pay for the PSW, or here's how we're going to go ahead with the pension plan, or here's how we're gonna go ahead with there was early childhood educators were also supposed to get a raise. They never did that, they pulled the plug.
So an interesting scenario develops then with this election, something that probably never gets discussed on during the campaign, is that if a minority Liberal government gets back in and they bring back a completely different budget, and remove all of these things that you say they didn't have the money to pay for, that will almost trigger another quick election, because it will have indicated that this budget was purely a campaign problem.
Well, then I say this is why I'm here, and this is why good people like you are doing great services to every Ontarian by having an opportunity to put those questions forward. There will be candidates debate, there will be leaders debate, there will be opportunity to vent this out, so that as an electorate, we hold our government to account. This is how a democracy works. If they're on record as making a promise over and over and over that they have no money to pay for, then somebody during the campaign better ask them, how did you intend to pay for those PSW pay increases? Why is there not one penny put aside in your budget bill for the pension plan, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, where does it come from? It's like the Maley Drive extension in Sudbury, the 26.7 million has been put aside, but it's conditional on the federal government coming up with the same amount, and we all know now that the cost of that extension is double what it was to begin with.
Yes,
So-
and you know, like, nobody said that it was conditional.
No.
Same thing with the $1 billion they announced for the Ring of Fire. The $1 billion for the Ring of Fire is conditional upon the federal government matching funds. So we don't know what it's for, we don't know when it will be available, we don't know how to apply for it. All we know is that they want the federal government to put in $1 billion. Pretty thin platform to stand on, when, for my riding, it means hundreds of jobs in Capriol. Capriol is an area of Greater Sudbury that is one of the poorest.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what 500 job would mean to Sudbury, to the northeast, to Capriol, to Nickel Belt, to all of this? And you put out an announcement that looks great. $1 billion is that has a lot of zeros, you know. It carries a lot of cash. You make it a big announcement when, as soon as you peel the first layer of that announcement, there is absolutely nothing behind.
And are people willing to listen to what's behind that first layer? I guess that's the big
That's
campaign
that's what.
challenge right
Yeah, and that's where you come in.
Yeah.
That's where you come in, so that if there is something behind this, we have not found it, but it's a very good opportunity for the Liberals to tell us what's behind the first page.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's unfortunate when you're looking at timeframes, and we really don't have as much of a time constraint as some radio shows, but we've spent a good portion of this program talking about the strategies, but I don't think that anybody has a chance to talk about this. Like everything that you've been saying, and I've been around a lot of elections, you don't hear this when you're sitting at home listening to the newscasts and reading the newspapers. Nobody talks about what you just talked about.
No.
Nobody, like, the behind the scenes, we hear the promises, but we don't hear about if it's matched.
Yeah.
We hear the promises, but we don't hear about, well, we're not sure where we're gonna get the money to pay for it.
But I would say buyer beware. So
Right.
next time you hear, whether it's me or anybody else, make a promise, ask them, how much will it cost?
Mhm.
Where will the money come from? When will it be rolled out? You know, like the basic questions you would ask about anything else when you go buy a pair of shoes or a new car. You know, like when will it be delivered? How much? What will be the final price? And well, you have to ask yourself, how will I pay for it? What kind of financing options do they have when you're buying a car? When you're running a government, then you have to show, you know, like, don't get me wrong, the NDP also makes promises, and yes, if we make government, we will invest in certain things. I can tell you that we're trying to help people make ends meet. We're trying to help the middle class with you know, like from feeling squeezed and not being able to make ends meet to making life more affordable. One of the main thing that I hear lots and lots in Nickel Belt and everywhere else is the price of hydro. The price of hydroelectricity has gone through the roof.
Yeah, I'm on Hydro One, we have electric heat, so.
Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So are we making promises? Yes, we are. We are promising that we would take the provincial portion of the HST off of your hydro bill. You remember when the HST came in, we used to have the GST, the federal part, the 5% was there, but we never had the provincial part on. The 8% was never on our bill. So all of our bills went up 8% when we started taxing them. So we're saying there is no reason to tax electricity for a homeowner. A homeowner uses this as, you have no choice but to heat your home in the winter and to turn the lights on, so let's not tax this. Will it cost money? Absolutely. It will cost $100 million to take the HST, the provincial portion of the HST, off of the bill. Where will it come from? It will come from capping CEO's salary, because I don't know if you know this, but in Ontario, the CEOs that work for OPG and OPA and IDSO, and we have an alphabet soup of agency that runs, they make millions of dollars, each and every one of them. In Manitoba, that has a system where all of those CEO is in one person only, he makes $370,000 a year. Ours, we have 4 CEO, one is at 3.8 million, one is at 1.8. So capping CEO salary, you go get a few million, and we don't need 4 agency, consolidate the agency. So this is an example. Am I making a promise? Absolutely. I'm promising you that we would take the 8% off of your hydro bill. How much money does that mean? It means hundreds of millions. How will I pay for this? I will amalgamate the 4 agency into one, and I will cap CEO salary so that there's no reason to pay people millions of dollars to increase our hydro rate every year.
Yeah.
And so some people will say, hey, this sort of makes sense. This is something I like. And I would say, no matter which candidate is in front of you, if it's something that pleases you, still do your homework. You know, like I meet PSW all the time. I come from the healthcare system. 25 years in healthcare, you meet a lot of people. I know a lot of PSW who said, Frost, we were going to get $4 an hour more. You know what that means? That means $8,000 a year more if you work full time. I get it that they need the money. But then there was no money in the budget to pay for that increase.
So it wasn't gonna come.
It wasn't gonna come. So next time you see your Liberal candidate and you're very disappointed that the NDP did not support the $4 an hour, do take times to say, where would that raise come from? What is the total amount of that raise? Because we have millions of hours of PSW that we pay for in Ontario. We just increased it by 1 million hours just last year. We have dozens of millions of hours of PSW. Multiply this by $4 an hour, I'll let you do the math.
So what would have happened if you would have supported?
If we had,
They couldn't have followed through on the budget.
no,
So this was a budget that was doomed to fail almost from the beginning.
yep.
So that the election was coming anyway.
But they knew this.
Mhm.
We didn't know that till May 1st because in 2013, the Premier Wynne came and talked with Andrea. And she asked Andrea, you know, like, what is it that you would want to see in the budget in order for the NDP to support it? And we were clear, Financial Accountability Office, 15% off of your auto insurance rate, and a 5-day home care guarantee. So, and those were in the budget, and the money was there to back it up, and we voted in favor. For this budget, there was never any talk.
Wow.
It came as, well, some of it was leaked in the media, so we read the press just like everybody else, but we did not see it till Thursday, May 1st at 4 o'clock.
We definitely have to get you back in, because we're almost at the end of our time, and there's so many more interesting little things to talk about. Before you leave here though, is there anything that you want to make sure that we hear from you about, or you want to say? Because I know you're going to be meeting Andrea Horvath this afternoon, I think, right?
Yeah, Andrea's coming in, she's the
Yeah.
first leader to come to the door.
Yeah. Like your platform is, it's available.
Yes.
And it's going to be released
The-
over time.
Correct. So, but what has been released is a little bit of money for licensed childcare. As you know, here in Sudbury, a lot of basically Sudbury won't be getting is one of the, I think it's 12 cities that are not getting as much money from the federal government as before. So they're keeping the kids that are in care, but they're not taking new kids. For every kid who has a place in daycare, there are 5 more that are on a wait list or that cannot access daycare. So we have promised money will continue to flow to Sudbury and those other cities to help with daycare. We've also made a promise that I have explained to you about rolling back the provincial portion of the HST off of our hydro bill, so that's 8% off. I think every party has promised to take the debt repayments. There's a line on your hydro bill that is debt repayments. That was when, basically, when the nuclear were built.
The Pickering bill, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're still paying for this when the Auditor General is telling us that this debt's already gone. So this has to come off of your bill, and we have offered for low-income people a $200 a year relief for their hydro bill, but solely for low-income people. So we've made some promises that way. We have also, we realize that creating job is very important. The way that most government has gone at it is through tax credit, where basically there's a tax cut across the board and big corporations pay less taxes. Everybody thought that if they pay less taxes, they would hire more people. It has not happened. What they've done is they've banked a whole lot more money. They did not invest, they did not create new jobs. So rather than rolling out, there's a tax cut coming on July 1st. We're saying that rather than roll out another tax cut for big corporation, we're going to bring forward a job creation tax credit. That is, if you can show that you are creating, and there will be rules in place, if you can show that you are creating a new job, you will be given the tax credit. If you're not creating new jobs, you continue to pay taxes what was there before. We're not rolling out the new decreased tax rate. And same thing with a manufacturer tax credit. If you invest in new plants and equipment in Ontario, you will get the tax credit. If you don't, you continue to pay the taxes as they are now. We would be rolling out the new corporate tax cut on July 1st.
So your job, basically now for the next 4 weeks, it's less than 4 weeks now, is to
No.
engage the public.
My job is to engage the public, exactly.
And talk and make sure people are aware of what they're going to the polls for.
Exactly, you got it, and it's difficult. A lot of people, the behavior at Queen's Park is such that it turns a lot of people off of politics. My workplace is a bunch of middle-aged, rich guys mainly, who scream at one another things that I wouldn't say to my dog. Who else screams at their coworker? You don't do this. Well, this is my workplace. This is what people see. Question period is, and the more you scream, the more of a buffoon you make out of yourself, all of the cameras go to you and you make the top of the news. Well, it may make for good news because you see somebody flying out the handle, but it turns a lot of people off. They paint all of the politicians with the same brush, and they basically get very, very disenchanted. Look at the number of people who don't go to the polls. Look at the number of people who don't bother to vote. They are completely turned off by the entire things, and it's very sad. A democracy only works when people are engaged, and this is what you're doing today.
Yeah, it's there's so much, like I say, to learn, and I think that's. I have to stop myself from talking because we do have to get you out of here, but it is one of those things that I think for people to know what each of the parties has on the table, you can go to a website, you can, because it's when you're dealing with a provincial government, the platform is pretty much standard. But I think getting to know the individual who is representing you in your constituency, I mean, this is the only time you get to see the human side of the person that you're voting for. Yeah. And I'm hoping that in all of the levels, including municipal and provincial, that people don't just vote for signs, that they get to know the issues and they get to know the people. Yeah. Because we come from a generation where it's almost as ingrained that if your family voted for one party, you will vote for that party forever. But I think we have to start getting back to, okay, what's happening here? What are the issues? Yes, there's a lot of things that the NDP turned down. So it's the NDP's fault that we're having an election now. So the first question that has to be is, there are a lot of promises, but where's the money? Yeah. Where's it going to come from? And
where's the follow through? And we never voted it down.
We never voted it down. No, no, that's right. So who dissolved? So I mean, these are all things that people just don't get to know unless they get to hear this teaching, these lessons. So we're definitely getting you back. Somehow we're going to get you back before the election, whether it's June 2nd or June 9th. And in my mind, it's probably going to hopefully be around June 9th, because that'll be the last week, and everybody's platform will be out.
Will be fully rolled out.
Yeah, and will be a few days from the election. So if it can work out, great. Yeah. If not, I'm really glad you had a chance to come in. It's a busy schedule, and this is not a small riding.
No, it's a big riding. I drove almost all the way to Folliette on Friday, and saw that the road was no more. And the police was there and all of this, so we had to turn around. And now we're Monday, and the road is still not fixed. Some people from Folliette started to call the office and saying that, like there was nobody there on the weekend. How could that be? Like, this is a provincial highway. This is the major link between basically Folliette and Timmins. People that are on dialysis go to Timmins 3 times a week. Kids go to school to Timmins, and now there is no road and there is no way to go. I mean, going around from Sault Ste. Marie, Bruce Mine, Sudbury, all the way back up to Timmins is like a 7-hour. Yeah. So it's really, I can tell you that if I was in the House, that would have been question number 1. How could that be that 4 days later nothing has happened, and those people are left stranded, and there's still no way to get to Folliette. Folliette is in my riding, so is the French River. Nickel Belt is the 5th biggest riding, and it goes from the French River in the south to Folliette in the north, and east-west it goes from there in center to just past Wanapitang.
So you're not going to be resting for a while?
No, and I put a lot of kilometers on my car.
Yeah.
My poor little car is...
Well, let's get you out to see Andrea Horvath in time. Maybe you can have a coffee before and relax for a while. Franz, thanks for dropping in. It's been... I find it fascinating, the information you've provided. It's, again, we don't hear about exactly how things transpire.
because nobody listens for half an hour.
Nobody listens for that long, yeah. But it's educational, and if it's here, at least we're putting it out so people have a chance to hear it. And we will hopefully get you back again. So again, thank you to Franz Gelinas, who's the Ontario NDP candidate for Nickel Belt.
Yeah.
And best of luck on your the rest of the next few weeks. And like I say, I'm pretty sure we'll get you back again before the election's over. So stay tuned to CKLU.
Thank you.